Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much, audience participation. That's what we always like. It's a great honor and privilege to be here today for what is the official launch of the Silverstone 2035 vision. And thank you, Pim and Team Genie, for inviting us to come to this, and of course all the work and collaboration that you're doing with us on where we've come from with this and where we're going. The website tells you an awful lot, but I'm going to try and give a very sort of high-level overview of what is a sub-regional development coalition. Because Silverstone, I'm sure most of you know, sits across two counties, Buckinghamshire and Northamptonshire, and of course local authorities, Buckinghamshire and West Northamptonshire, and very close by we've got Milton Keynes as well. So as a sort of concept, we're looking at a sub-regional development platform, I think is what has come out of the visioning process that we've been through. So this vision was co-created by nearly 50 different organizations, and you will all get a copy in your sort of takeaway pack at the end of the day. It's an 8-page document, so you can read it, and please do read it at your leisure. I'm not necessarily promising a test on it, but do read it. And it's got some, it's distilled from quite a lot of information. You'll see the process we went through in a minute. Well, we have to thank Buckinghamshire Council, West Northamptonshire Council, Silverstone Park, MEPC, and Silverstone Circuit. They funded this project. 50 different organizations got involved, and a big thanks to our partners on the delivery, which of course Whitecap again were very heavily involved in this particular project. Whitecap Consulting, I know Lal's here with some of his colleagues. We also work closely with Helen Neal Communications, Tomorrow's Tourism, Challenger Communications, and Art Conahan is here somewhere, and we had some input from the Oxford Cambridge ARC Universities group as well. So the vision. Yes, there's a lot behind it, but basically the top left paragraph, to be the world's premier destination for high-performance innovation, if it isn't already, but it's not necessarily known already. That's one of the challenges. Where sport, science, engineering, technology, and leisure converge to drive a sustainable future. And that's quite interesting that we put all those words together. You might think, why are all they together? Well, perhaps we'll just look at that in a second. So you can read the whole vision, but some of the elements to it, the process. So a lot of evidence gathering. So Whitecap were tasked with going through, and I think in the end it was nearly 200 or over 200 different documents. They distilled into a 100-page PowerPoint evidence sort of base. And that led into 2 visioning workshops. So we summarized what we'd found out about the region, and that led into the first workshop, which created the vision, or the first draft of it. And then the second workshop sort of refined it, challenged it, and helped this process, editorial process of coming up with this 8-page document. So there's an awful lot of stuff that trying to distill into just 8 pages. And that was quite a challenge too. What's happening now? Just a couple of things moving forward. Silverstone Circuit have commissioned the university, working with the University of Sheffield Hallam, to do an economic and impact study on the circuit. But the data, I'm sure they will be happy to share in terms of how it feeds and fuels into the Silverstone 2035 vision. And I have to, recognize that Silverstone Circuit were the instigators of this process about 2 years ago, in terms of that sub-regional development coalition to lobby central government, to market effectively to the outside world, etc. And we are now in the process of creating the delivery platform to drive this forward. Now, when you're done a project like this and you get this kind of feedback, it's really quite motivating in terms of some of the feedback from the people that took part. It's an excellent vision for the area. I'm usually pretty skeptical about this sort of thing, but I think you did a good job of producing a concise document. Don't have anything to add, it's a great document. A great piece of work. I will use it in our strategic planning exercise, etc. And from other key stakeholders in the region, Naomi Green, the bottom there, the document looks fabulous. And Naomi, with the East England's economic heartland and the East-West Rail, is a very big supporter of us. And also we have some very strong civic support, obviously from the councils, Buckinghamshire, West Northamptonshire, and Greg's here from North Northamptonshire. He's on my target list, and of course MK. I haven't seen anyone from MK Council. I'm sure they're here. Yeah, Sophie's over there too. So they know that I'll be chasing them to get involved. But I thought it would be useful to get a slightly different perspective from the Lord Lieutenants of the three counties, now including Bedfordshire, I'm pleased to say, and we're very keen to welcome Bedfordshire because there's a lot going on, and really these boundaries are somewhat artificial. Business doesn't stop at a county boundary. But I'm delighted to call upon Dr. Julie Mills to say a few words on behalf of the lieutenancies of Buckinghamshire, Bedfordshire and Northamptonshire. Do you want the mic?
Hello, good morning everybody. I'm delighted to be here to represent the Countess Howell, who is the Lord Lieutenant of Buckinghamshire, and we are thrilled to support the vision. It's an inspiring vision, Adrian. Thank you for sharing it. And with its focus on collaboration and connection, that really is so aligned to the ambitions of the Lieutenancy, as evidenced by the fact that we're joined today by Lieutenancy colleagues from Bedfordshire and Northamptonshire, Ed and Phil. And we're really all starting to work together in the benefits of the whole region. I think also, for those of you that don't know anything about lieutenancies, the Lord Lieutenant of the county is the King's personal representative in the county. So really, me being here to represent the Countess Howell, who would be representing the King, if the King was here today, he would also be echoing his support, and particularly because with the priorities that you set out around innovation and sustainability, that's absolutely attuned to the King's Awards for Enterprise. And I'm sure on another occasion, colleagues from the Lieutenancy would be happy to come and talk to the Silverstone region cluster about how going for a King's Award for Enterprise, looking at the criteria, can really, really help accelerate your business growth. And there are areas, of course, looking at international trade, but looking at sustainability, looking at social impact, looking at innovation, and absolutely aligned to everything we're working on in the Lieutenancy. And from a personal perspective, I'm absolutely delighted that skills have been prioritised as one of the areas we want to work on. And we know that the STEM sector and tech sector more broadly is not yet representative of the community. I think it's something like 29% female workforce, 21% women in senior leadership positions, and a rather scary 9% of the workforce from areas of social disadvantage. And I firmly believe that by prioritising skills and working in the sorts of values-led partnerships that Becky was just setting out, you really can challenge those statistics and really ensure that the workforce gives those opportunities for fulfilling careers to the whole community. So yeah, the Lieutenancy thinks this is a fantastic initiative. Thank you to everyone for doing it, and we're really thrilled to lend our support. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. So we have a snowball, and it's growing, and it is an open church. We would like everybody to put their hand up and say, yes, I'd like to get involved, because we want to co-create, continue the process of co-creating. So what have we learned so far? Well, in fact, we talk about cluster, and we're here, at the Silverstone Technology Cluster event, but actually there's 4 clusters or subclusters or mini clusters or whatever. Motorsport, clearly, the origin of the Silverstone and everything around it is motorsport over the last 75, 77 years. And that's quite well established, well, very well established and very well served. The engineering and technology cluster, that's really the focus of today, and all the work that the Silverstone Technology Cluster do so well in support of all the businesses. Perhaps I think that's the potential to drive that cluster and grow it. That's what's exciting about what we're talking about today and this particular vision. There's a tourism cluster, an embryonic tourism cluster. Perhaps it's only 20%. If technology and advanced manufacturing and all that is the biggest part, tourism might only be 10, 20%, but I think it's a very important part in terms of the marketing strategy. There's business tourism already coming to the region. The Silverstone circuit wants to convert itself from a 4 weekends a year event, a sporting venue, to a year-round tourism destination. And I think that there's a lot of mutual synergy and support here in terms of putting Silverstone on the map. And remember, 80 million people around the world know the word Silverstone and know it's associated with Formula One. And I think there's also an opportunity, if not already identified, for an education cluster. And in education, there's almost one of the issues here that we need to address, because underneath I've used the word donut. Silverstone, within 20 miles, it's got everything. But has it got enough creches, Starbucks, public transport connectivity within the Silverstone, immediate Silverstone environs, within 2 or 3 miles, etc. And that's, education. We've got Cranfield, we've got the University of Northampton, we've got the Open University, we've got the UTC, we have the National College of Motorsport, and a lot of those are on the peripheral. So one of the questions is, should we kind of build, placemaking strategy, and what should be built on from a master planning approach onto the sort of Silverstone space and the Silverstone Park? And that's a question we're asking, and are heavily involved with MEPC and Silverstone Park people as well. The D in R&D, this came out pretty early on from Ros Bird, that many of you will remember when she ran MEPC, which is Silverstone's excellent at development. Fail fast. 2-week turnaround to solve the problems in a car, fix it, get it out again, change the parts, invent new widgets, etc. But perhaps the R needs could be fueled a bit more. Or is that working more collaboratively with Oxford and Cambridge, or with Boston and Shenzhen, or with Sheffield, or all the other innovation and tech clusters? And working with Silverstone Technology Cluster, and Pim and I have discussed this at great length, very much a key partner in this, working collaboratively, supporting each other. I think Silverstone Technology Cluster is a membership organization primarily, although it does an awful lot for those that are not members. And it's the technology, engineering technology side focus. I think the Silverstone vision is creating something, more of this open church, multi-stakeholder, multi-sector, multi-cluster element as well. And, the sort of feedback was to have perhaps an independent catalyst to drive these things forward. But, Prim, I promise you, in partnership with you and your board, and I've continue to be very much involved on all the major decisions that we make. So what do we identify as the enablers? What is the vision? What do we have to do? Now, you could call those weaknesses. Let's call them enablers. If we get these right, it will drive the vision. And look, advanced research, development, and commercialization. Very similar to what Northamptonshire has identified. Smart, sustainable infrastructure. Investment and business growth, talent and skills development, world-leading destination for sport, technology, and leisure, and be known so. Northamptonshire certainly has a habit of hiding its light under a bushel. We need to be out there. Marketing communications is a strong part of this. Telling the world, we've got some great stuff here. We have people in this room from London who've come. They did have no idea. They thought they'd come to see a racetrack. There's so much more going on, and we're just not telling that story effectively. And a collective and collaborative ecosystem within which different elements of that cluster, different sectors that Becky referred to, can have their potential sort of realized. So how are we going to move this forward? We've got, for those 6 enablers, we've got 6. See what I did there? For those 6 enablers, we've got 6 strategic delivery themes that we structured the first visioning on with Whitecap, and I'll just quickly show you those themes. A live or infrastructure Silverstone, probably the domain of the public sector in terms of getting the connectivity, transport or digital, correct. There's a very exciting, very fast out of the blocks, sport and e-tech, esports cluster. Watch that one. That should be almost renamed the innovation space, because they've got some really fascinating ways to create new leisure tourism products, new revenue streams, and new events at the convention center, etc., as well as how do we train mechanics and engineers going forward. Some fascinating stuff in the simulation augmented reality space. Destination tourism, Silverstone, the tourism I talked about. Campus Silverstone will address level 2 mechanics, engineering, events managers, leadership, entrepreneurship skills and development that Becky has also referred to. The Invest Silverstone, where are we going to get the money from? Sophie, Greg, anybody wants to sponsor anything of this, but foreign sovereign wealth funds, high net worth individuals around the world. We need development money, we need sponsorship money, we will need venture capital money to help the businesses, the scale-ups and the startups. So that's quite a big group. Some really talented people, though, involved in that. And then the Connect across the supercluster, across the world. And we have about 70 people volunteered already, split roughly 15 or so into each of those groups. And this, as I said before, an open invitation to please get involved. If you think you've got something to offer, if you come with the attitude of helping the public general good as well as what's in it for your business, you're very, very welcome. because we've got an exciting project here with a lot of momentum, senior leaders, senior level commitment, and as I say, over 50 organizations, which next time I talk to you, I hope that's over 100 organizations. Now, you might say, how does this fit in with the UK and the UK strategy and the UK industrial strategy and the Invest 2035, if you've been following the Labour government's approach to industrial strategy? Well, I'm delighted to welcome today, to join me here in this session, is the director of the Oxford-Cambridge Growth Corridor team department at HM Treasury. A big warm welcome to Cavendish Elithorn. Cav.
Thank you, Adrian. And perhaps like Julie, I should start with who I'm here representing. So I work for Patrick Vallance, Lord Vallance, who is both the sort of Minister for Innovation and Department for Science and the Ministerial Champion for the Oxford to Cambridge Corridor. And I've been in this role since April. But I've been involved in the corridor a bit longer. I used to work in the Department for Transport and covered this region as part of my brief there. There's lots of exciting stuff that we've heard today in terms of the corridor. Lots of it chimes with the sort of thinking across the national strategies. We saw an excellent set of, I think it was 6 factors, Becky, in terms of an innovation infrastructure space. We'll have a slight variance on that, but there are some really common themes across the piece. And so sort of we think about this sort of Oxford through to Cambridge corridor, we sort of think about it at 3 levels. It's how do we create that thriving, innovative ecosystem for business to grow, to scale up, one of the big challenges across the country. But to enable that, you need connectivity and you need place. You need people to feel that there's something there for them, that they've got local jobs. It's not just about the high-tech entrepreneurs coming in on internationally. It's about the lab technicians. It's about the teachers for the schools. It's making sure that everyone shares in the growth of that economy and that they feel they've got great places in which they can live. And that's part, I think, of your donut strategy there. And that those places are connected. And obviously, the biggest piece of connective infrastructure currently in the pipeline is the East-West Railway that will really sort of bring this corridor together in a way that, frankly, at the moment, it's sort of broadly 3 fragmented bits of the Oxford end, the Cambridge end, and the sort of Milton Keynes Bedford in the middle. And even they are not that well connected. I think it's 45 minutes once an hour on one of the sort of slowest trains you can have between the two. That will change by about 2030 and hopefully a little bit earlier. So in sort of, and then the sort of third area is that we are held back in some areas by a lack of water or a lack of power and a lack of digital infrastructure. So for us as a team, we actually have no levers. These are all issues owned by other government departments, and there are some really clear strategies being put in place by the government to tackle some of those, whether it's energy, whether it's affordable housing. And the job of our team is to make sure that across the corridor, the sum is greater than its parts, and to act as champions for the corridor within Whitehall about the areas where perhaps it's not quite at the table. How do we bring it to the table? How do we escalate the issues? And the thing I found most energizing about this role since I've taken it on, I've been trying to get out and about quite a bit. And actually it was sort of meeting Adrian up in Leeds for UK Reef, is just how many sort of hidden gems of opportunity there are in this corridor. And that's why I think your sort of point about marketing and branding is so crucial here. There's some fantastic stuff in this corridor that is just not getting enough airtime in terms of its opportunities. But I think sort of having looked at this across the country, in other places around the world, I sort of come back to a sort of couple of core things that really make a difference. And number one is actually civic leadership. You know, this is not stuff that is done from Whitehall. It is stuff that is led by local leaders. Now, they can be university leaders, civic leaders, they can be business leaders who, as Adrian said, are not just in it for themselves, but actually want to put something back and grow their community. And there are many of those around. And it's fantastic to see the energy coming into this, because actually when I sort of first picked up the role, there was a bit of a question mark about the middle, was where is the sort of leadership in that space? And I say I've been energized by the people I've met along the corridor in terms of building that leadership, but I think there's sort of more to do to create that vision, turn it into action, and be sort of really exciting and have that ambition really to make a difference. But also the other thing I think is crucial in that space is don't take no for an answer. And I think that's sort of one of the challenges sort of across the corridor is it's very easy to find an answer to no, or a reason why not to do something. And the thought of it I used to do with my team in a previous job was the sort of magic wand. If you had a magic wand and you know what you want to do, what would you wave it at to get it out of the way? And my experience is when you do that, about 70% of the time, you find a way to get rid of that thing. And by sort of thinking through that thought process and identifying the issue, you can then put your brain power to solving it. But sometimes you can't, and you need some help, whether that's from central government or the private sector. And that's where, as a central team, we are here to help with some of that stuff. And that might be as simple as helping navigate through Whitehall. It's pretty tough from inside. It's a nightmare from outside. And so some of our job is, as a team, is to sort of bring those connections together. Sometimes it's say, gosh, the left hand and the right hand don't appear to know what they're doing, government. Perish the thought of that. But it's really here to be supported because lots of the answers, most of the answers come from the places, the ambition they have, the knowledge they have, and the differences they want to make. And it is our job to help. I always say government broadly has three things. We have warm words and convening power. We have policy frameworks, and of course there is money as well, which is challenging in the current sort of spending review circumstances, but there is still a lot of that being invested across the piece. And so if we sort of bring those things together, it really has the potential to unlock a lot of what goes on this corridor. And Adrian's telling me that I think in Silverstone, the sort of productivity metrics are twice the county average or something like that. And that's the sort of real strength to build on in this place. So I'm happy to take questions now and in the break, but I was very keen to just come in here and make sure, because as Lord Valence will say, the Chinese have a word for Oxford, they have a word for Cambridge. Silverstone is an internationally recognised brand, but I think there's more to be done in terms of bringing that sort of third element of this corridor, which is absolutely the heart of growth for this country, up to the visibility that the two ends have, because there is a huge amount of innovation here, whether it's in Silverstone, whether it's an open university, that just needs a bit more airtime. But I'm going to put that back to the leaders in this room. You're the ones who've got to sell that story, build it up, but me and my team are here to help if there are things that are getting in the way of achieving that vision, which Adrian and Becky have so powerfully outlined earlier today. Lots to do, fantastic to see the energy, and I look forward to maybe coming back in a year's time to one of these events and seeing sort of how much has been done. As I say, very happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you.